What's up, guys? I want to tell you a little story from The Heart of Asia by Nicholas Roerich. In 1929, he wrote this book. Nicholas and Helena Roerich were Soviet-red expatriates and what you might call New Age mystics, which is normally a term that will get me to roll my eyes and walk away really quick. But this came from a time before yoga pants and stretching in front of all your friends and acting like you're actually doing something. I hope everybody realizes that true yoga has nothing to do with what we think of as yoga in the West. A true yogi may spend his entire life learning to sit in a particular position the correct way. Anyway, these guys are from a time before all the commercialization of any kind of mystic movement. And these two are truly fascinating people that I'm becoming more and more of a fanboy of, which is hard to do. I don't drink the Kool-Aid eagerly on most people. They were the first Westerners to enter Tibet in a very long time. And even the lamas and the Maharajas were basically stunned when they showed up and were inquiring about and knew about Shambhala, which is the supposed inner earth city. In his book, there's one story in particular where he shows up and you know, this is a temple out in the middle of nowhere, mind you, and this huge expedition shows up and they're reticent to open the door for him. And then he starts talking about Shambhala and they're blown away that a Westerner is here and knows about any of this stuff. And they literally think that this is the appointed time for humanity to rise to a new level. This has been prophesized well in advance. The Roerichs are basically aristocrats. They are very well connected with friends in high places. Their expedition to Tibet was in part funded by the US Gov. I've even read some of what's known as the Guru letters, which are correspondence between the Roerichs and Henry Wallace, who was vice president to FDR. And early on, the Roerichs could basically do no harm in Wallace's opinion. But what it looks to me like as time went on and more leaked out about what was really going on with their expedition, then Wallace had to distance himself from them because it seems like, you know, the more mystical side of things started to get out. But even Wallace, in one of his letters to Roerich, made a reference to being ready to serve here on the outer shell. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but we're talking about the vice president of the U.S. Anyway, the story of their expedition and of their lives is truly fascinating. And they appear to be somewhat of a red herring, something that never thought actually existed. They were real-life philanthropists. Not the type that release G-modified O's into certain areas and then malaria breaks out. In the U.S. for the first time in, I don't know, probably ever. I hope you guys caught that story this week because, yeah, that just happened. Anyway, these guys do seem to be kind of the genuine article in that their true mission was to raise the attainment, the vibration of humanity. And I'm just giving you guys a quick rundown here. I'm almost positive I'll be coming out with a video more on what's going on here because, you know, we're talking all the way from King Solomon to Shambhala. There's a lot going on with all of this. Nicholas was an extremely talented painter. These are the paintings that you're seeing here. He made all of these while on caravan. They said that they came out with literal bales of paintings. I think over 3,000 in total. And it's somewhat amazing that he sat down and made these serene, beautiful paintings while traveling through the desert in a caravan, which is very grueling and takes a toll on you. But they go all the way from just a regular landscape painting to very esoteric and, you know, a cave with backlighting that you don't know the source, a glowing box, all these really esoteric things. Some speculate that he did find the entrance to Shambhala. And this was a time when people actually took this stuff pretty seriously because British intelligence followed their expedition, and they know that for sure, and speculated that the Soviet intelligence was following their expedition as well. But I want to just pluck this one little story out of the book because this is pretty interesting by itself. Now, in the book, they run into all these people that tell them these stories, and this one says, another Lama of the Red Sect told us about the wonderful Asaras, seemingly Hindu, with long hair and white attire, who often appear in the Himalayas. The wise men who know how to master the inner energies and to unite them with cosmic energies. According to the Lama, a learned old Lama knew such Asaras personally and was in personal touch with them. So that story stands alone from the next one, but I just wanted to give you an idea that they've got all these stories about these mysterious people that live deep in the Himalayas that don't really have contact with the outside world, except in this case, a few lamas. Now, here's the really cool one. The Statesman, the most precise newspaper of India, published the following experience related by a British major. Once before sunrise, while camping in the Himalayas, the major went from his camp to the neighboring cliffs to see a majestic snow-capped outline of the mountains. On the opposite sides of the gorge rose a high rock. Great was his astonishment when through the morning mist he noticed on the rock the figure of a tall man, almost naked and with long black hair. The man was leaning on a high bow, attentively watching something behind the rock. Then, apparently noticing something, the silent figure with great strides leaped down the almost vertical slope. Completely amazed, the major returned to the camp and asked the servants about this strange apparition. But to his utter surprise, they took it quite calmly and with reverence told him, quote, Sahib has seen one of the snowmen who guard the forbidden region. We asked a Lama about the snowmen, and again the answer came in a surprisingly calm and affirmative way. Quote, these snowmen are very rarely seen. They are faithful guardians of the Himalaya region, where the secret ashrams of the Mahatmas are hidden. An ashram is defined as a religious or monastic community, religious retreat. If you guys have ever heard of like the hidden meditation caves, it's something like that, but possibly relating to a whole hidden community. Formerly, even in Sikkim, we had several ashrams of the Mahatmas. These wise Mahatmas of the Himalayas direct our lives through unceasing work and study. They master the highest powers. As ordinary people, they appear in various places here, beyond the ocean and throughout Asia. Now, keep in mind, they're up in the Himalayas where the average elevation is above 20,000 feet. So this is a big, huge caravan. To see a lone person with very little clothing, basically naked, where nighttime temperatures are probably well below freezing, is extraordinary enough in itself. But then it sounds like it kind of performs somewhat supernatural feats of leaping down a vertical slope. And he's probably excited as could be and goes to his guides and they're just like, oh yeah, that's the snowman. As in, yeah, we see him all the time, no big deal. Another story told to them goes, from a cave came a stranger, very tall and in strange attire. He came to the bazaar in Turfan in order to buy some things. In exchange, he gave a golden coin for them. After, when we looked at this coin more closely, we saw that for more than 1,000 years, such coins had already been out of use. This man came from the Holy Land. Now, at this point, a story like that is almost a trope of science fiction, but, is this the origins of that kind of story? I mean, I know there's Rumpelstiltskin out there, but, these are pretty small ethnic communities up in the Himalayas to where you can recognize where someone's from just by the way they dress, the style of clothing that they have on. And then they produced a coin that somebody had to say, hey, look, we haven't seen this in 1,000 years. It's in our oldest scrolls, it's described. Another story goes, out of one of the subterranean passages came a woman, tall, serious, and of darker complexion than ourselves. She went among the people to help them. She also came out of the Holy Land. Another story relates, horsemen of the most unusual appearance were seen near a cave, then all disappeared. Probably they went through a subterranean passage to their own land. Through many of the passages, one can even go on horseback. Through many of the passages. You know, after 20 or so of these stories, you get the feeling that basically everybody from the region has some kind of story or legend of these people and some kind of encounter saying that, look, there's people out there in the mountains that come from somewhere else and they're not the same people as us. And honestly, the more I think about it, if there was a top-tier technological civilization in the past that could see something like a comet approach and know it's going to hit, or that there's going to be a solar flare, or whatever the case may be, then it only makes sense that they went underground. It's exactly what we're trying to do right now, at least our higher-ups are. And if they did go get themselves set up underground, they may have just found it better to stay down there. I mean, you can mine for everything that you want. You take your grow lights, you know, you have raw minerals. Everything can be, organically can be recycled. And you could set up a sustainable civilization. But kind of as proof of our de-evolution, today, all us truth seekers out here on YouTube, the end-all be-all of technological advancement is electricity and being able to cut stone, according to YouTube. This is like the most dense vibrational frequency of thinking that you could possibly have, because nobody thinks in terms of spirituality and in terms of higher attainment and spiritual enlightenment. We have our priorities bass-ackwards. I mean, come on. Which is more advanced? Somebody that can make a machine to cut and lay some brick and some stone and build some structures, or somebody that can reincarnate time and time again and remember all of their past lives and just keep doing this. Which is a video I need to get in here somewhere, because just imagine, you know, reincarnation may not be the case for everybody, but it may be. Just imagine what civilization would be like if everyone knew that reincarnation was real. You guys do know that the Dalai Lama is the same Dalai Lama that's been there for hundreds of years now, supposedly. I have to get into it deep. It seems like their system has been corrupted, but this is what they believe. When the Dalai Lama dies, they go looking for where he went, and they find him in the new body. Anyway, I think that anybody looking at, quote, advanced past civilizations needs to shift their focus on and stop worrying about sticks and stones. Broaden your horizons. The goal of Roerich's expedition was for spiritual attainment, to advance the state of being for all mankind, not just for himself. And that's why I'm finding his story so fascinating here. So I'm sure I'll be back with more on this. Static out.